Hey, Sam here from Sugar Spun Run. Today I want to show you how to make my all-time favorite baked mac and cheese. Creamy, stretchy cheese, just so good. Let's get to it. This is a baked mac and cheese, so get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's start with our pasta. You'll need a pot of water. We're going to salt this generously. There's my salt. And we are going to take this over to the stovetop and bring it to a nice rolling boil. Once that water is nice and boiling, we'll add our pasta. You'll need 8 ounces of dry elbow macaroni, so that's half a box. Of course, you could double this. You are just gonna need a much bigger dish for baking your macaroni. So we'll add the pasta and we are going to cook it according to package instructions. I actually like to shave a minute off so the pasta doesn't become overdone, especially since we'll be baking it in the oven. I find it usually needs to cook for like 6 or 7 minutes. All right, once our pasta is cooked, we are going to drain this and then I just return it to the pot and drizzle it with a teeny tiny bit of olive oil to keep the noodles from sticking together. While the macaroni is cooking, let's prep our sauce, our nice cheesy sauce. So I am going to bake this whole macaroni in a 10-inch cast iron pan. You can use a different size dish, like a 9x9 baking dish or like a 1.5 quart casserole dish, but I like to prep everything in here, cook it in here, saves me a dish. So we're going to turn our stovetop to medium heat, and once it's nice and hot, we will add our butter. You'll need 4 tablespoons of salted butter. We're going to let that butter melt, and then we're going to add some flour. So I have a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour here. I'm not going to add it just yet. But what we're doing is we're basically building or making a simple roux. And this is going to give the mac and cheese like a really nice depth of flavor. It's going to give it body. It's going to make it creamy. And it's just a really important step for a baked mac and cheese. All right, once that's melted, we're just going to sprinkle in a 1/4 cup. And we're going to whisk this until it's completely absorbed and there are no lumps. Again, this is the base for our cheese sauce. All right, once it's well combined, I like to keep whisking it, keep it moving so it doesn't burn, but we want to just slightly toast the flour a little bit, so I cook it another 30 to 60 seconds longer. Okay, once this is nice and a little toasty, we're going to add our spices. First up, let's just do our salt. You'll need a 1/2 teaspoon of regular table salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper. I like to use a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. What is going on here? Jeez. And 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard, which also really helps give us a nice flavorful base. So I go ahead and whisk these spices in, and then I'm going to add the milk. So for this recipe, you need 3 cups of milk. I recommend a whole milk. Or you can do what I do, and to make things extra indulgent and creamy, you can use 2 cups of whole milk and then swap 1 of the cups of milk for a cup of heavy cream. The recipe works great either way, but recently I've been subbing 1 of those cups for a little bit of cream. So we're going to gradually stir in the milk. Things are gonna get a little steamy. Sorry, it's just the nature of mac and cheese. I don't wanna add it all at once. Just keep whisking. I like to do the spices first because it really helps integrate them into the sauce and just kind of blooms them a little bit, which makes the dish even more flavorful. Okay, 2 cups of milk. And like I said, when I first wrote this recipe, I always just used 3 cups, but more recently, we do a cup of cream. And you add this now. Oh, it's gonna be so good. If you notice any separation of the milk and butter at this point, don't panic. Your heat may be a little bit higher than is ideal, but it should all come back together a little bit later on as you keep cooking. So we need to cook this until it's thickened. The mixture will usually come to a simmer. You don't need it to come to like a full rolling boil, but you do need it to thicken. And as it's simmering, just keep whisking just to keep it moving so it doesn't get lumpy. So after a bit of simmering, you're going to notice it gets thicker, and you'll be able to feel this in your whisk. Like it's just kind of, the whisk will start to leave like gentle trails. And you can always do the spoon test if you're really not sure, which just means you coat the back with a spoon, and then run your finger down it. It leaves a little trail. A little taste test here too. That's how you know you're ready to move on. Okay, here we're gonna drop the heat down to low. We're going to add our cheese. So the first cheese I recommend is 2 cups of a sharp, not extra sharp, but a nice sharp cheddar cheese. So very important, you want to shred this yourself instead of buying that pre-shredded cheese, you know, that you can like get pre-shredded. That has additives to it that keep it from melting like nice and silky smooth. So I really always shred my own. A Gruyere is something people like to use instead of cheddar sometimes. That should be totally fine here. The next cheese we're going to use is a cup of mozzarella cheese. Again, I buy whole milk or even, what's the other one? Part skim, and we'll shred that myself. They both work really well here. So this is a cup of mozzarella. When I first shared this recipe, I used to use a 1.5 cups, but I actually found that by cutting it down to just a cup, we get a little more flavor because mozzarella can kind of dull the other flavors. So reducing the cheese made it more flavorful. Who would have thought, right? All right, we're going to stir this in because we want the cheese to melt. And the cheddar is really important for flavor, and the mozzarella, not that it doesn't add any flavor, but it's really important for texture, and it adds that nice like subtle stretchiness to the dish as well. These two just work really well in this dish. And the reason I say not an extra sharp cheddar isn't because it won't work at all, but because it doesn't have as smooth of a melt, and it can make the mac and cheese seem a little bit less creamy. Whereas if you use a cheese like Monterey or Colby instead of the cheddar, it would be even more creamy, but it doesn't have quite the same flavorful punch that cheddar gives. I spent a lot of time thinking about mac and cheese. So here's where we have to just be a little bit careful since we're using a more shallow pan. I love this cast iron, a Lodge cast iron. I'll leave a link to it in the description, but like Lodge is pretty inexpensive as far as cast iron goes. Pretty sure they're still made in America, I think. And they just last forever. I love them. This is not a commercial for Lodge. I just really like the pan. It's nice and stretchy. Thank you, mozzarella. Let me grab our pasta, which is nice and hot. I don't want to burn my hand. All right, again, proceed with caution. Try not to splash anything here. I'll go to great lengths to avoid having to do an extra dish. Okay, let's stir in that macaroni. You can turn off your heat at this point. You need those noodles nicely coated. I'm so excited to eat this. Don't skip the baking process though, because we are about to add the crown jewel, the layer that makes this mac and cheese so good compared to any other I've ever had. Oh, it's so creamy, it's so good. All right, I'm going to move this behind me. It's just gonna hang out on my stovetop. It doesn't need to be over the heat anymore. And we're going to make that topping I was just telling you about. This is an easy panko topping. I just need a small skillet or even a saucepan would work. Okay, my cooktop wants to make weird noises, so we're gonna head over to the stove. Okay, so now we'll set this over medium heat. Add a tablespoon of oil. I'm using olive oil, and 2 tablespoons of salted butter. We'll let this melt. Okay, once that's nice and melted, we're going to add our panko. We're going to use 1 cup of seasoned panko here. We're just going to stir this and cook it until it's nice and toasty. It only takes a couple of minutes, but you want the panko to be a nice golden brown, and all of that butter and oil should be absorbed. Oh, this is what makes it so good. Okay, once this is nice and golden, we are just going to scatter it evenly over the mac and cheese. Oh, this stuff, it just adds like such a nice texture and a nice flavor. All right, once we have all the panko on top, nicely distributed, we're gonna drop this in the oven, center rack, 350 degrees. It just needs to bake for 15 minutes. All right, once it's finished baking, hold off just a little bit. That way it has some time to cool down so you don't burn yourself. And also if you dig in right away, it's going to be like extra creamy. It thickens and the sauce tightens up a little bit as it sits. But once it's cool enough that you're not going to absolutely burn yourself, it's time to dig in. I love this mac and cheese. If you try it, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, this is definitely gonna be too hot to eat. It's incredible. It's so good. Hey, pasta's starting to go crazy back there. Casey has my skillets. Let me see what I did with that. Some weird noises. Again. Oh, darn it. My all-time favorite baked. Like, I think that's gonna cut the cheese.